What video or recording is perfectly innocent, but becomes terrifying when you look into the story behind it? This surveillance video of Timothy Pitson. It just looks like he and his mother are checking into a hotel, but in reality it is shortly before his mother kills herself and leaves behind a note saying Timothy is safe but will never be found. He is still missing. In the note, Fry Pitson apologized for the mess she had created, and explained that Timothy would never be found, but was safe with people who would care for him. Squints suspiciously. The TV show The Willis Family that had 2 seasons on TLC. The dad was super controlling of his 12 kids and wife and just gave off creepy vibes. I was shocked though to find out that he had been raping his own daughters for years, with the oldest saying that molestation started when she was 3. All 12 children were homeschooled and did dance and wrestling, but only with each other. They were so isolated from other people. He was also strict about his daughters saving themselves for marriage even though he was raping them. There's a clip from the show of him discussing all the kids building houses on his property so his future grandchildren would be close by. It's like he was trying to set up his next victims for when his daughters grew up. The worst part is the mom knew for a while but didn't do anything about it. It was a family friend that ended up reaching out to authorities, which led to his arrest and sentence of 40 years. It's super creepy to see clips of the show knowing what was happening behind closed doors. Considering the hidden in plain sight sexual abuse by Josh Duggar, you'd think TLC would be more careful when they do shows of families in the quiverful cult. People who have those extremely skewed, controlling views of sex are rarely up to any good. TLC doesn't give a single shit. They still film and promote the Duggars. They only kept some of them off the air for a while because of backlash and now it's faded. My mom and I recently watched one of those 2020th shows. And they were talking about a woman who went out drinking one night and was never seen again. She had gone back to one guy's apartment, but hotel footage showed her leave shortly after arriving. And the guy in the apartment swore he didn't do anything to her. But they kept interviewing this one guy, who was the last guy to see her alive. They stopped at a gas station, and he claims that she started talking to another guy, got in his car and left. He played the whole "if I had only known, I wouldn't have let her go" act, with tears and everything. Well, there's footage of him at his job a couple days later, and the footage is super generic. He has a cooler on a rolling cart, and he's putting it in a freezer. He worked for a food production company. When the police interviewed his boss, they asked to see all of her footage, and she obliged. When they got to that part of the footage, him putting the cooler in the freezer, she told police to stop. She said that those coolers were used to store granola bars, and there was zero reason for those bars to be put in the freezer. The girl's body was in there. He took it out back and burned basically everything in a barrel down the alley a couple days later. But it was before the police had seen the footage. And he had bleached his entire van before police could search it. The dating game. The concept appeared innocent enough. A woman chooses a bachelor out of the 3 available contestants and they go on a date. However, the game in 1978 turned dark when serial killer Rodney Alcala was nominated to be a contestant and actually won the game. The contestant refused to go out with him on the date because she thought he was actually creepy afterwards. She dodged a bullet. The song Anne-Marie sings in All Dogs Go to Heaven about wanting a loving home. While recording, the voice actress, Judith Barcy, kept crying. Her home life was awful. Her father was abusive to both her and her mother and would often threaten to kill or hurt them. Judith died before the movie came out. She and her mother were killed by her father and then he killed himself. She was 10. My dad couldn't watch that without crying with rage. As a kid it didn't make sense. Because then he'd turn off the TV and just hug me till my ribs creaked. What a creepily wholesome metaphor, hugged me till my ribs creaked. What about the video that was on Tosh? Oh, where there were two girls and the dad tied them in a playful way to the bed. But it was really like a pedo tutorial on how to do this to kids so the pedo could do what they wanted. Tosh said on the show it was creepy and the guy's whole YouTube channel was weird. A few months later the FBI or something investigated it and it turned out the guy was a pedo abusing the girls and exploiting them on his kid's YouTube channel. That video looked creepy innocent until you find out the real story. Reminds me of that picture of two girls on their knees eating whipped cream off an older guy's knees. The girls are smiling, probably thinking they're playing some goofy game, when obviously in reality the guy is grooming them to normalize that behavior. I hope those girls are okay. This is David and Louise Turpin renewing their wedding vows in Vegas with an Elvis impersonator. 3 years later, their 17-year-old daughter escaped from the house that she had been locked up and abused in along with her 12 siblings, and called the police. When authorities arrived they believed her to be around 13 years old, as she was so malnourished. Their eldest daughter, who was 29 years old, weighed just 82 pounds, around 30 kilograms. For years the parents had imprisoned, beaten and strangled their children, allowing them to eat just once per day and shower just once per year. Either David or Louise's Facebook profile was public and had a lot of pictures of the kids, who all had the same shitty haircut as their dad. It was fucked up. David Alan Turpin and Louise Anna Turpin met when David was 17 and Louise was 10, and eloped in 1985 in Petersburg, Virginia, which angered Louise's father, who was a pastor. Yikes. Ian Huntley. Guy murdered 2 young girls and gave an interview to the news while they were missing. One day I saw a news report on a woman's body dropped in a lake. The police were still looking for the body. They interviewed a man who said that could have been someone's mother. A few hours later they find out the body was that man's mother. That's sad shit, man. The James Bulger video. I'm on mobile and I'm a bit lazy, but it's a seemingly innocent video of a 2-year-old boy James holding the hand of an older child. James was tortured and murdered by 2 10-year-old kids who led him away from his mother for a split second at a shopping center. There was a picture of a 16 to 17-year-old girl floating around very briefly years back. It was just an innocent picture of some teen posing for a photo. Look deeper into it and it turns out the girl was from a rich family and had a drug problem. She got into an argument with her dad, stormed out and stole his car, did a bunch of coke, then crashed into a bridge going hella fast. She was killed instantly. As sad as that is, the fucked up part is why the photo was being passed around. Somehow the photos taken as the scene of the crash found their way online and horrifically cruel people decided to send out fake memorial emails to this girl's family. Opening the email seemed innocent enough. A heartfelt subject about how terrible this was. A photo of this girl before she died. But scroll any further and there were the pictures of her corpse with messages taunting her loved ones. I found one of these messages and her body was not in one piece. It was mangled. Seeing your daughter's corpse is one thing. Seeing it in that state is something else. But to have people playing with it online for no other reason than to hurt you is unthinkable. Porsche girl. Nikki Katsaris. Carmen Miranda's last performance. Carmen Miranda, the famous singer and dancer of the 1940s, performed on the Jimmy Durante Show on August 4, 1955. At the end of her performance she briefly dropped to her knee but popped back up afterwards. She later died of a massive heart attack that same night. Edit. Happens at 24:02. My fault for not putting it earlier. Wow. You could tell her dance partner knew something was wrong and stopped the music to let her catch her breath. This video of former Officer Craig Pyre giving safety advice that was created in response to the murder of Cara Knott. Pyre had murdered Knott by luring her to an isolated area just off the freeway. Never let them take you to a secondary location.